With the upcoming release of James Gunn's new film, it truly is a good time to be a Superman fan. DC's been marketing these past few months as the Summer of Superman, and have a bunch of new Superman-related titles, spanning from the ongoing Superman book to a new Supergirl series, and even a crypto book. With so much new Superman content, I've been seeing a lot of people who are looking to find a way in, and the truth about comics is that it can be kind of a tricky medium to get into, especially when you're talking about characters like Superman or Batman, who've been around for 80 plus years. That said, I do consider myself fairly well versed in Superman comics, at least well enough to offer out some recommendations. So here are 8 easy Superman stories that I recommend reading to anybody looking to get into reading Superman comics.
Disguised as a mild-mannered newspaper reporter, Clark Kent.
Superman for All Seasons. I put this story first on the list because it is by far my favorite story on this list. It was the first Superman comic I ever read, and I've revisited it countless times since. It's a very simple, very elegant depiction of the early days of the Man of Steel. His trials and tribulations as a young farm boy in Smallville, seeking out his destiny, his introduction to the city of Metropolis, the beginnings of his feud with Lex Luthor, and at its heart, a story that roots itself in Superman's relationship to being human. Not in a gritty, melancholic way, but rather heartfelt and sincere. Superman is a character that cares, that so earnestly wants to help the world, and this book showed me that side of Clark before he even dons his cape. I put this one first because if there's any one book on this list that I would say you should read above any other, it's this one. Number 2. Superman Kryptonite. In many ways, I see this as a sort of spiritual successor to For All Seasons, so it's no surprise that I love this book as much as I do. Interestingly though, I feel like I don't really see people talk about this book that much, but whereas For All Seasons made me love Superman, Kryptonite is what made me understand him. This story follows Superman's first encounter with the element Kryptonite, one of the very few things actually capable of killing him. I had very little expectations coming into this book, but I was incredibly surprised with what I was able to take away from it. It does a really good job at highlighting the severity and just how scary Kryptonite can be to Superman, but what I really love about this book is how it also uses Kryptonite as a means to humanize Superman. Obviously I don't want to spoil too much, but this story presents us with the idea that Superman is actually quite happy to discover that he does have a weakness, and is able to take joy in his own mortality. It's a really cool take on Kryptonite and Superman as a whole, and in my opinion a very underrated Superman story. Number 3. Superman Up in the Sky. Now, here's the thing. Tom King can be a bit of a controversial writer, and it seems like most people either love him or hate him. But, love him or hate him, he did write a really cool Superman book. The basic synopsis of this is that a little girl was kidnapped and taken to space, and Superman must decide whether or not he should abandon the Earth, potentially putting countless lives in danger, to rescue one single person. Obviously, being Superman, he does choose to go save this young girl, and we follow him on his adventures across space as he embarks on this mission. I think this book really shines in its ability to present us with these very large, fantastical threats, whilst maintaining a simple premise, and it just further highlights what type of man Superman is. He is a hero that will in fact go to the edge of galaxies to save just one person. Number 4. Superman Peace on Earth. Sort of similar to Up in the Sky, Peace on Earth is a relatively simple story that shows us Superman's attempt to reduce mass starvation in impoverished nations. As I said, it's a simple premise, but no less effective. I really like Superman stories that focus more on how we can make a change in the world, as opposed to just beating up bad guys, and this one in particular is neat because it actually attempts to deal with the realities of ending a world conflict to such immense scale. Superman tries to just take a bunch of food to these places, but faces resistance. There's a lot of subtleties to be found, and I can appreciate the fact that Superman is not literally able to just fix this issue with such ease. There's a sense of stakes and struggle, but ultimately, Superman's persistence still shines through. Number 5. Superman Birthright. Most people know the origin of Superman. Doomed planet, desperate scientists, kindly couple, boy unlike any other, yada yada. But Mark Waid really likes Superman, and a lot of his work with the character, especially Birthright, very much feels like a love letter to the character. This book expands Superman's origin into 12 issues, following him as an investigative journalist in Africa all the way to his decision to become Superman and the absolute whirlwind that this creates for the world. The characterization for not only just Superman, but his entire supporting cast of characters is really, really good. Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen, Perry White, Lex Luthor, they all come alive in a really distinct way and has a really cool ending to it. I always love a Superman story that shows us the impact that he has on Metropolis, with this one culminating in the city banding together with Superman to fend off an alien invasion orchestrated by Luthor, and having Superman use a giant version of his symbol as a shield to protect civilians. This is sort of the de facto Superman origin, and honestly I feel like the imagery alone is strong enough to get you to read this one. Number 6. Superman, The Last Days of Lex Luthor. Continuing with the Mark Waid praise, we have The Last Days of Lex Luthor, a very recent book that acts as an unofficial sequel to Birthright. Lex Luthor is dying of an incurable disease and he asks Superman to help save him. Can the Man of Steel knowingly allow his greatest enemy to die without even attempting to save him? It's such a good premise, it's such an obvious premise, and while I think Waid is a little in your face with times about the messaging of Superman's character, I think he also uses the entirety of the Superman mythos to its full extent here, showing us a really cool variety of different bits of Superman's lore. The Bottle City of Kandor, the Phantom Zone, the Legion of Superheroes in the 31st century, even Superman's ex-mermaid girlfriend Lord Lamaris. This book has it all, and in many ways it is sort of a swan song to Superman and Lex Luthor's rivalry. Number 7. All-Star Superman. Okay, it is quite difficult, almost impossible, to talk about Superman comics without first mentioning All-Star Superman. It's 12 issues and it follows Superman after an adventure in the heart of the sun leaves his cells so overcharged with solar energy that he is dying. What will he do now? Will he finally confess the truth of his secret identity to Lois Lane? How will he keep the world safe when he's gone? Can the world prosper without a Superman? And what of Lex Luthor, the man who orchestrated this whole affair? This book asks so many interesting questions and uses its length to show us corners of the Superman mythos we've never seen before. Jimmy Olsen fighting a black kryptonite poisoned Superman on the moon, dinosaur men invading from the center of the earth, Superman trapped in Bizarro World, time-traveling demigods trying to woo Lois Lane and steal her away from Superman, the last will and testament of the Man of Steel. Everyone knows about this book. I'm sure most of the images I've shown on screen you've already seen before, regardless of whether or not you've read the story. It is as good as everyone says it is an obvious pick, but I simply cannot pretend like it is not one of, if not the most influential Superman stories of all time. And finally, number 8, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
I ain't gonna lie, me too. When I went on her page and seen her pictures, I said, "Oh, jump scare."
Okay, so I am cheating a little bit here, because Superman himself is actually not in this book. But, as a fan of Supergirl and the entire Super family itself, I didn't feel right not including some sort of story relating to one of the other members of the House of L. Plus, if you're convinced to continue reading Superman after checking out these stories, you're going to quickly become familiarized with the larger Super family. They are very present in the current era of Superman comics, and that said, I'm not recommending this book just because. Again, Tom King can be a bit of a touchy subject amongst more die-hard comic fans, but this book is really good. I mean, they're quite literally just adapting it for the DCEU. Kara is very interesting, and I find her contrasting experiences and differing ideologies with Superman to be really fascinating. And this book gives Kara a bit of an edge, and it's really interesting to see how she deals with some of the monumental feats that she's presented with. Because this book is a book that takes you on a journey. Kara using red kryptonite as a drug to unlock abilities she can't normally possess, the destruction of Argo City, Comet the Superhorse, Supergirl being forced to endure a planet with a kryptonite sun. It is powerful, it is often very visceral. The art by Bilquis Evely is monumentally grand, and King's writing is incredibly impactful. My personal favorite moment from this book is Kara's feelings of being just so incredibly overwhelmed. Her struggles with the fact that she isn't the same force of optimism that her cousin is. But above all, still combating, still persevering, and in the end, prospering despite it all. So there you have it. 8 stories, all easily digestible for new readers, all pretty much able to be read with next to no background knowledge. I'm planning to make more in-depth analysis of some of the stories mentioned on this list, so if that sounds appealing to you, maybe stick around. I'm also planning on making videos about specific longer runs of the characters, so if you find yourself ready to take on more of a committed reading experience through Superman history, stay tuned for that as well. And thanks again for watching, and let me know in the comments what your own personal favorite Superman stories are.